Welcome to another edition of Research Fantasy Presents our MLB DFS pitcher pool for Thursday, April 13th, 2017. I'm your host, Nick Valinchak, better known as Nick from CWE on all of your favorite daily fantasy sites, and I'm here to give you my top three pitchers for tournaments tonight using FanDuel as base pricing. Last night was a disaster in the pitching department. I mean, I had enough Stroman, I had Velasquez. I didn't really have enough John Lackey, but ultimately, Stephen Wright has shown himself in two starts to be absolutely unapproachable this year. I mean, literally the Orioles were hitting like 118 against him, and it had been 3 games. And I understand that's not a huge sample size, but it was enough for me to say, okay, there's enough reason to believe the Orioles can't hit the knuckleball. And that still could be true, but Wright did himself no service. 2 straight games, his knuckleball has not been there at all. He's just floated pitches over the plate. I mean, it was basically akin to what you would see in a major league batting practice. So Stephen, while I'm not one to hold grudges, I mean, this is a situation where Stephen Wright is just very bad right now. There is a very good chance if he has like 2 more outings like this that he's going to be out of the rotation and in the minor leagues or potentially worse, because you can't do that in baseball. So things set up pretty standard, I think, today. Only going over the late slate of 6 games today. 4 games isn't really enough to pique my interest in the afternoon slate, so I'm not going to play there. But yeah, breaks down pretty simple. DraftKings a little bit different. We'll touch on that as we're going through, but since I'm using FanDuel as my base pricing, let's get things started off with Madison Bumgarner of the San Francisco Giants at home against the Colorado Rockies, priced at $11,300 on FanDuel. Now, he's also the most expensive pitcher on DraftKings, but you're paying for some safety with Madison Bumgarner. Even with a bad outing against the Padres last time, he still went 8 innings, gave you 5 strikeouts, 2 earned runs, a quality start, 37 fantasy points. All right, so, on that slate, I think it might have been similar to this, where he's expensive and you're kind of looking through the pitching options and saying to yourself, there's not a lot I really like. I mean, okay, let's pick on Milwaukee. Are you going to do that with Bronson Arroyo? Or are you going to look me straight in the eye and tell me you're going to pick on Milwaukee with Bronson Arroyo? I'm not. I think I'm okay with trying to pick on the Brewers with Bronson Arroyo. There's a lot of pitchers that just kind of seem like they could be in a good position, but I'm just not buying it. So really, Bumgarner's your only safety on the slate. Rockies spent about a week in Coors. Not a huge homestand. It's not something that really jumps off the page like they played 14 straight games there, but there's definitely going to be a little bit of a hangover for them as they leave Coors and go into one of the worst hitting environments in all of baseball at AT&T Park. I think Bumgarner, he's got the potential tonight to post everything you can want from a pitcher. You're never going to be able to sit here and say he's going to no-hit this team, and that's not what I'm trying to say. But the Rockies' bats have not been good to start the year. Bumgarner is Bumgarner. Home park. This screams complete game. Maybe not shutout, but it definitely screams complete game. 8 to 10 strikeouts, and the type of fantasy score that I just can't see anyone else reaching tonight. So Madison Bumgarner on one-pitcher sites. He's getting locked in across the board for me. I'll just figure out how to diversify my bats elsewhere. Yeah. Next up, let's talk John Gray at $7,800. Now, on DraftKings, he is priced immensely at like $10K right under Bumgarner. And in my opinion, I don't even see it being worth a look in tournaments because I just don't believe that he's going to get the win. I believe Jon Gray is a quality pitcher. I believe that he's going to a park. The biggest thing that keeps me fully away from Gray at that kind of price is just the fact that if there's one thing San Francisco has, it's good lefties, and that was Gray's weakness in 2016, 2015, 2016. This isn't basketball. It's not split between 2 years. But still, you have to look at a good pitcher who hasn't pitched well thus far. He had one bad inning in Milwaukee, then he went to Coors, and even though he pitched well in Coors, I mean, it's still not a good pitching environment. We know that he's probably got like the second or third highest K upside on this slate. I just think it's tough on DraftKings where you kind of need the win, and I just don't see him getting it here. I think he can definitely have a quality start, which at least gets us some points on FanDuel. Wouldn't be shocked to see him in that 35 range that Bumgarner was in his outing against San Diego, but ultimately I don't see it being a situation where he's able to pay off an enormous salary. So my take on Gray on FanDuel is, okay, if you want to, switch things up a little from Bumgarner, if you want to spend more in bats tonight, which I really just don't think you need to do, that's a good route to go. On DraftKings, I just think that it's a situation where the risk, it might be one of those moves that's just stupid, like me playing Steven Wright yesterday. Like, guys clearly not in good form, and I'm talking mostly about Wright. Yeah, he didn't pitch well. He pitched well against this team before, but just like in golf, man, I like recent form. That's something that I use very strong consideration when I build my models, because if a guy can't hit and he can't see the fairways and he can't make putts, he's not going to be in good form, and if he's not in good form, he's not going to stick around in tournaments. And if you have cut tournaments, you don't need guys that are potentially missing the cuts here. As I flip over and get to see someone who I played at an extremely high ownership in Jason Kokrak make an eagle. I'm going to try to get on track here. We have one more pitcher left. I like Luis Severino, and I know that that's probably not a shared thing. We get Severino against the Rays. Put up a decent outing, only decent against the Baltimore Orioles. 5 innings, 6 hits, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts, 4 earned runs. Got 21 fantasy points. If you look at it like this, and I do think this is a poor way of looking at it because this isn't basketball, but he was probably like half the price of Madison Bumgarner last time. If you multiply Severino's points, he did better than Bumgarner, but baseball's like the least point per dollar situation I'm necessarily looking at, because there's way, 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 way too much variance to stomach trying to do something cute like that, especially in your cash game. So we're not talking about Severino as a cash game option. We're talking about him as a low-end tournament, fill up your lineups with bats. I think he makes a decent SP2. We know that there are some struggles from Tampa Bay being able to hit, period. So I think there's upside to Severino, but there's also the chance he goes and gets shellacked. So I don't know. I think I like him. I think he's someone who I'm going to have. I don't necessarily see and love anything else on this slate to the point where it's like jumping out at me. I'm not a believer in Liriano. I'm not a believer in what happened last time with Wei and Chen. So for now, top 3 pitchers: Madison Bumgarner, Jon Gray, Luis Severino. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel below. Head over to researchfantasy.com. Sign up for our MLB mailing list. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter @ResearchAWin. And join us again tomorrow.